Hi, Steve. Welcome to obviously our conversation in sport. This is an opportunity, obviously, to talk and give our parents a bit of an insight into professional sport, your journey, and different pathways and opportunities in which you come. Just to start off with, could you obviously you came from a teaching background and professional rugby yourself. Could you tell us a bit about your journey and the influences that got you into your role today?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and thanks very much for the opportunity to kind of come along and have a chat. So my name's Steve McGinnis, and I work for IQ Rugby, which is basically the IRFU's kind of performance branch of talent identification for rugby athletes. But yeah, my journey started probably outside of that, really, in teaching, as you said. So left school in Northern Ireland and came to university in Loughborough. Gosh, back in 2003. Eventually got my degree out of there after playing a lot of rugby with Loughborough and working with a little bit Northampton Saints at the time, as well as in their A team. So, kind of like a lot of probably aspiring athletes trying to, branch out at that kind of professional level. But as many things do, the rocky road kicks in and several injuries down the line later, and you end up as the opportunity's not there. So I actually left university injured. And got a job as a graduate assistant up in the Northwest, a school called Stonyhurst College, and just went in as an assistant, again, just trying to find my kind of pathway at that stage, really. I'd always kind of maybe had kind of background aspirations of being a teacher. Actually, I wanted to be a primary school teacher when I was at secondary school. And then the opportunity came to get my teaching degree through the school. So I did, it's called a GRTP course, so study on the job. Got my teaching qualification, and then ended up PE teacher, games master, and actually ran the boarding house there as well for a couple of years. So again, helped my kind of probably working career from that side of things. Alongside that, I was very fortunate enough to, at the same time, to fall into a couple of contacts at Files Rugby Club up in the Northwest. I'd worked with the coach previously through that. Was part of my kind of coaching background was at Loughborough, doing a lot of kind of volunteer coaching, summer camps, etc. And one of the coaches was a guy called Mark Nelson. Many people in the Northwest will know Nelly very well. And so got down to Files. Did a pre-season with them and ended up playing with them for 5 or 6 years through a very kind of successful time with that. And fortunate enough again as well to play with a very successful Lancashire team at that time as well. So so was able to kind of balance my kind of really enjoyable high-level rugby with a career. And then from there, I was fortunate enough to further my career in the teaching side of it. I actually moved back down to Nottingham, to a place called Trent College, where I was head of rugby for 6 years, and actually rejoined Loughborough Students for a couple of years as well to try and keep that rugby going. But eventually, as the kind of coaching took over a little bit more, I gave up the rugby side eventually. And then, the IQ Rugby opportunity came along. So that really came along through a lot of volunteering from a lot of side my teaching. So kind of my summer holidays and Easter holidays, going along to events and days that would have been set up for that. And then, full-time position came along to kind of do it. And so took the leap from teaching into full-time coaching. And it's kind of branched from there, really. It's been really good. And so, as I say, currently involved with the talent identification program of IQ Rugby. And a branch off of that, I've been very fortunate as well to work with the Irish women's national team.
Just going on to obviously your kind of journey when you went through, and you had a couple of setbacks in regards that maybe deviated your pathway in which you thought was at the time. How important was that for you as a person, and how did it develop and influence you?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate through my kind of school career. I was involved with the provinces in Northern Ireland. Really, I was involved with Ulster, and then was lucky enough to play Ireland 19s before I left school. I was old for my years, who played 19s actually before I left school. So at that kind of point, you're kind of thinking, yeah, I want to give this a go. Really, you've kind of touched into the national team and the rest of it, but actually. Even at school, I had a very bad injury. I did my ACL and would have been year 11. So missed a lot of that. And, as a teenager, it's pretty tough going through that kind of journey. You bank a lot on your kind of rugby, but it did have an effect on me at that time. But it kind of also, you talk about rocky roads and building character resilience. You've got two choices really. Either sit in your backside and cry yourself around it, and you know, it is tough, and then there was some, you know, some tears for myself at that age, but so at that point you do have to turn around and say, right, where am I going with this, and what do I want to do? Do I want to keep going? And I really persevered with it. I kind of went through it, and left school and went and played senior rugby at my local club, etc. from that side of it. And it was from there, really playing senior rugby, that I was given the opportunity then to get a scholarship at Loughborough as well. So I actually went to Loughborough University with them and received a scholarship. And once I went into that environment, that's really when I was kind of the kind of, I would call it, professional side of my development became really to the forefront. You know, you could argue, well, you weren't getting paid, but actually you don't need to be paid to be professional. The environment you're in and what you're actually doing and how you're conducting yourself and your peers around you was really a driver from my sense there. And I was surrounded, you know, in a high level sporting environment with not only rugby players around you, but, you know, at Loughborough, where you've got, you know, athletes and swimmers and netballers and all sorts of people, you know, in your classes and your lectures, etc., that, you know, you can really learn and drive off. And so that was really kind of important in my kind of professional development, and really kind of give me an insight to the standards to kind of take you on to that next level, really. So which is really good, but also to kind of get that balance, because you are in that high level environment, you know, it's really competitive, but you're studying, you know, you actually have to have that outside balance as well. So probably like a lot of your students there, you know, doing A levels and GCSEs and the rest of it, actually they may want to be doing high level sport, but at the end of the day, you're out of school to you know, come out with your A level grades to hopefully go on to the next level. So that was always kind of the kind of background of the Loughborough, but it certainly gave me a real good foundation to then go on to what I have gone on to do now, really.
Yeah, class. So just going into obviously your role at the moment, and talent ID is a massive questionable topic, and there seems to be no real clear answer to how it's done. We've got many of our students that are in different talent pathway programs, whether it's netball, hockey, we've got, you know, the football and the rugby and the cricket. And, you know, what for the Irish IQ program, how do they identify and develop players, and what would a process look for an Irish qualified player to get an opportunity?
Yeah, so probably I'll go through the process really first. So we run a global program, but most of our stuff's based here in the UK. Their staff are based here, and obviously Ireland's quite close. And, you know, from an Irish qualification point of view, you know, there's quite a lot of Irish qualified people, you know, just simply come across the water and end up staying, a bit like myself, really, you know. So that's it. But you're qualified essentially either been born in Ireland, Northern Ireland, or your parents were, or your grandparents. So it goes back as far as grandparents, really. So that's first. If you're Irish qualified, you can enter a program. We then run a national registration, a national program. So you can register at our website. You go to iqrugby.com and just put in your details there. And we probably started an initial kind of screening there. So we kind of look where you're at, who you're playing for, you know, what your kind of profile is. We ask, you know, those kind of questions. And then we run an open development days across the country. So nationally, we'll kind of go north to south, open training evenings and days. And then we'll go from roughly about 300 a year players down to probably about a squad of 40 or 50 or so. And then from that 40 or 50, we would then take that down to a team of 26. That then team of 26, we would then find a playing opportunity in Ireland. So in a non-COVID year, so think about whatever that looks like. It's been that long now since so we would normally go back and play in the Interprovincial Festival, which essentially is played against all the under-18 interprovincial teams. So essentially, there's peer-on-peer assessment, and we can then say, you know, this guy's as good as, you know, any prop or any number 8 or any fullback, etc. And then from there, really, it's kind of across to the national selectors. So they then obviously pick their national squad from, you know, all the provinces and the IQ players, and then those guys then get their follow-up opportunities into you know, the Ireland 18s teams, the 19s teams, the 20s teams. What we then kind of do with that kind of 40 or 50, and that can be pretty flexible, because certainly with rugby, where it's a bit more late developer, and certainly from a front five point of view, so your props and hookers and your second rows, sometimes those guys don't really come into their form maybe to their university years. So we would kind of track some of those players through until about 2021. And then really at that kind of point, it's if you've made it kind of 2021 or the opportunities there, that's kind of not the cutoff point. We never say a cutoff point because the door's never shut, but we would have a fair idea probably by that stage if you're at a national standard or not, from that kind of side of things. Talent ID though, like you're right, it's it's a it's a tricky one, and I don't think there is really any perfect model out there. I think for any talent ID, it's about the environment you want to go into. So whether you're at a Man United or a Liverpool, their talent ID programs are probably, they'll have similar foundations, but actually what they're looking for in a certain type of player is probably very different. And likewise, from an Irish model, what we look for in a player is probably very different from an English or Welsh or Scottish model as well. The foundations are pretty much the same. So your technical, tactical, physical, and your psychological would be your kind of very common used knowledge. What we call it is body, craft, head and heart. That's how we kind of do our kind of thing. So there'll be an initial assessment on body and craft. So essentially your kind of profile. And look, that's just pretty much from a positional profile position. Are you quick enough to play wing? Are you tall enough to play second row? Or, do you have the right body frame to play prop? We come across some really, really good players, great players actually, who play in first 15 teams or clubs. But the reality is, he may be a second row and he's 5'11". They're just not going to take that next standard to international rugby. The reality is, unless you're 6'4" minimum, and that's minimum really. That's a second row, and we never say that it's never about size and stuff, but there certainly is a cutoff point for some positions. But certainly outside of that, your kind of your backs, your centers and stuff. We don't necessarily say you have to be 6 foot, etc. Those kind of, but you do have to profile positionally to have the right skill set for them as well. And then craft wise is how you play rugby, basically your technical, tactical skills around your craft. Once we've kind of done that initial assessment, we would then obviously go into the head and heart side of it. And that's just finding out about the player, how well-rounded a person are they, because they may be the best player on the pitch, but actually off the pitch, if you aren't organized and disciplined and have the lifestyle to back up on the pitch, you're just not going to make it really. So we then obviously do they have the foundations to then kick on off the pitch. But then what we also do around that is give them a little bit of support, because like all kind of youth players coming through any pathway, they're learning. They're going to get it wrong probably more times to get it right. But so we put in an education program around that. It's about psychology and nutrition and lifestyle and organization and further education. So whether that be into apprenticeships, university, NVQs, whatever it is, so that they do have an avenue around their rugby. It's not just a kind of rugby focus as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're almost trying to pick out in your role the rough diamonds that have not been seen, and you kind of pick them out, isn't it? And give them the opportunity.
Absolutely. Like we'll obviously know the academy players and the guys who are playing the high level profile kind of rugby, because they're seeing they're out there and they're kind of with us. But it is trying to find those guys who probably don't have that opportunity and try to maybe find an opportunity for them. And as we say, it's sometimes a little longer process than people think. I know a lot of players, they want it and they want it now, but actually we probably work anything from a 2 to 6 year kind of process. So we would probably start our screening program, I say, for want of a better word, at 16. And that's just those open development days. We don't necessarily think a player is going to make it at 16 or not, but we probably just want to find out where they are, how they're getting on, what they're doing. And as I say, that might take them up to 21, 22 by the time they really get their opportunity and go across. So yeah, it is just kind of seeing how they get on their environments and just making sure that they're topped up with that educational side, off-field education side around that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, class. So, just one of our keys at our school is about different sports and different opportunities we have. And what's your viewpoints on specialisation, and especially early specialisation in younger athletes? And do you find it important to play numerous sports as an ex-teacher and a talent ID specialist?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important. Probably got my teacher head on here more so than anything, but actually even from a talent ID, there was a model a few years ago, probably released out from it was actually the RFU, released it about what a rugby player's background might look like, and I think they talked around the sports of, okay, yes, they would play rugby, but actually they'd probably play another team sport. They'd probably have a racquetball sport as well, so they're working on hand-eye coordination, and they'd probably do some kind of contact combat like judo or something off the field as well. So they're actually looking at what the kind of background of these players are, because I think it comes back to that, well-rounded athletes, what experiences do they bring? From that kind of teaching point of view, what I really loved about, the kind of teaching model and, the term sport is that actually, your first 15 rugby captain, he's going to be the superstar of the first 15 during term 1, but actually he's going to have to go and play hockey term 2 or football, and he might not be in the first team now. He might actually be a second team player. So how does he then, how does he add to that team value? Because suddenly he's not the superstar, he's not the main one, and actually does he apply himself as hard to that secondary sport as he does to the first sport, he's really, really good at. And you can probably get a lot more insight to that than you probably do just seeing them in their own environment. I think as well, just from that, just all round learning experience, I think of my own kind of sporting career. I grew up in Ireland and played, Gaelic football and soccer and rugby, and did a bit of judo, had a go at it for a couple of years, and did a bit of badminton, and did a bit of this, did a bit of that. And actually it was sometimes just, you're probably, although you might not be doing it in a performance environment, you're probably picking up skills and interaction that, you just unconsciously really just building up. And the more you can build around that background, I think it definitely improves your chances then to obviously take those experiences into a professional environment so that, you may have the opportunity to go into.
Yeah, brilliant. So obviously, just tapping into your role with the women's, the Ireland national team, and then we've seen probably over the last year or so, we're starting to have a real drive for that equal rights of women's sport and inclusion and opportunities. Are you currently working as a forwards coach at Irish team? What advice would you kind of give to the aspiring young female athletes in any discipline to kind of reach the top of the game, or what you've seen?
I think probably maybe tapping back into that previous question that we find with the female sport, that actually we probably receive more transfer athletes and more late comers to the rugby game than we do with the boys. That's changing, I think, slightly. I think there is more younger girls playing rugby earlier, so that is coming. But certainly at the minute, and even from an Ireland point of view, we've probably got Gaelic players, basketball players, soccer players, who are athletes who then transferred to come to rugby late and then picked up the sport that way, playing at a national level. So from, a young aspiring player, I would just say give it a go, really, and you might be a netballer or a hockey player now, but actually go and give rugby a go at your school or club and see how you like it and see how you find it. It's great that if you can make it to the top of the game, but for any kind of rugby player, sometimes it's actually just about playing for the love of the game, and actually the fun side of it and being part of that team and being part of that club. My wife, she plays local rugby club, and she was fortunate enough, she played high level sport. She played actually rugby league up for England. And, the first thing she came down when we moved down here, she'd retired from rugby league, we had a young family and stuff. And then when we moved down here, she was, I'm going to find a local rugby club. And because, I want a friendship group, I want to enjoy myself, and I just want to get back into it. So it's great that we wanted these athletes to aim for a high level, but I would definitely say go out and give it a go for the enjoyment first, and then find where you want to go. But if you do want to kind of push on, just take the opportunities that are there to you. So certainly from an Irish program, IQ, like we're looking at dual qualified athletes. Probably most of our players could qualify and play for England or Ireland, or some of them even maybe triple or quadruple qualified. They might be able to play for Wales and Scotland, etc. So just because you can't play for one doesn't mean you can't play for the other. So sometimes you just got to take that opportunity if you do really want to push that pathway through as well.
Brilliant. Yeah. So we have a Waconian values in school, which are pretty much integrity, endeavour, compassion, contribution, and resilience. You talked about the head and heart in the Irish development programme. How do you feel, these kind of values fit within developing athletes?
100%. Values is a kind of sometimes a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? You kind of go into these kind of cultures and values, and you think about, but for me, values are the kind of the things you do every day that you don't necessarily do when people are watching. Essentially it is you. And maybe back to we talked about that first 15 player, when he's actually playing for the second team of the hockey team or the soccer team in term 2 or the cricket team, does he have the same values then as he does as a rugby player? And that's probably for us the biggest telling part of talent ID. Actually, can you put these athletes into challenging environments, and do they have those same values? From an Ireland point of view, look, we're very similar to the RFU, exactly. The kind of things they have, but we kind of have respect, integrity, kind of looking here, inclusive, fun, and excellence. and probably for me, those last two are really about the talent ID. You know, are you having fun, enjoying what you do, but bringing a level of excellence to everything you do as well? And excellence is different for everyone. You know, me and you might go and play a rugby match, and my excellence level is completely different to your excellence level. You know, you're because actually it's about doing your best and enjoying yourself at the same time, really. And if you're doing the best and you're enjoying yourself, then you're improving, and that's all we can kind of ask players to do, really, at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously yourself in the Irish IQ program, you're looking to support the development of obviously the next up and coming, teams that could be identified who not normally would have been identified. How do you engage with kind of schools and programs around the UK to kind of get the word out and get people to go, I might have a crack at this? How do you do that?
Yeah, so we run a kind of social media campaign, and we probably do a lot of stuff like this, just having conversations with schoolmasters and rugby coaches, etc. Our biggest problem is finding the Irish qualified athletes, and they are out there, and there's loads of us. I think there's a quote that if every Irish qualified person moved back to Ireland, the place would sink. Really, there's that many of the people across the world. We do get everywhere. However, it sometimes is the problem we have. We get a lot of people who come late to the program. And they say, "Oh, I just found out my grandparents, was from Dublin or Belfast or Cork," and you're thinking, "Oh, you should have told us that 3 years ago." Or so probably you need to go back, if there's any players or parents watching this, and just go back and say, "Oh, well, so do I qualify?" Once you've done that, it's an open program for us. You can come to an open development day. Yes, there's a selection process along the way, but we want to find out if you're Irish qualified first, and give you that opportunity, that development process. And that engagement is just getting the word of mouth out there and just building that network really across the board. We don't have a base as such. We don't have a clubhouse as such. Everyone thinks we're attached to London Irish, but that's not our home club. That's where we are a pathway program running out of Dublin. We live here and do that across the country, as I say, but so we don't have that kind of weekly coaching contact, and it is about where you are in your environment. That's where you get your bread and butter. That's where you get your development. So working with teachers like yourself, because you know the players probably more so than we do, and you put the development into the players is where they get their skills and their development from. So definitely engaging with you guys is a real kind of important part. And then once we find a few qualified players at a school, we'll certainly up that communication. Some years there might be 10, other years there's none, other years there's one, so that kind of falls in and out. But that's just keeping open comms and open communication going. Yeah.
So another plug for the Northwest one. So if we were to be a student or somebody who's really, really, just found out the Irish heritage or know the Irish heritage and they want to get involved, when would they attend this summer? When would be the one and where?
Yeah, so if you go onto our social media website, and you put me on the spot here because I can't even remember the date. So we've got.
I think it's July.
Yeah, it is.
Lim FC in it, yeah.
It is. It's at Lim. Okay. Oh, you have put me in the spot here now. I'm going to have a look at something in a minute.
I'll make sure that gets out, mate. I will make sure, Steve, that is out. I think it's the 14th of July. I might be wrong. It might be the 14th of July, but I'll double check that.
There's a Women's Day on it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to look this up now. You put me right on the spot here. So
we can edit this out or edit it in, Steve. Don't worry.
There is. We run on a male and a female day here. So coming up. So here we go. So find it. Thankfully. So our Northwest for boys. So we actually run it in year groups. So we are currently looking at 2004 born males. So the way we do it is that we run it from a January to December age group. So we had our 2003s last 2019. We're looking at 2004s. We'll look at 2005s next year, etc. You can register at any point. Okay, so you can register your details, and we'll be in touch with you, and we'll try and find out. But we're currently looking at 2004 boys. So on the Wednesday, the 30th of June. At Lim RFC, we're
there we go.
So but we're also running a female event as well. So on Wednesday, the 14th of July, we're running that's for adult females. So again, we're looking at adult open age females for that one as well. And again, just if you simply register, go onto the website, go to the register bit, put in your details, select the event you want to go to. Yeah, you can attend 100%. So there's no kind of selection at that point. As I say, it's the next stage we would then go into once it goes into a national event. From that point, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to get it obviously to the millions of views we get on this
Absolutely.
one, Steve. So, you know, I didn't want to miss a plug there for you and get it out there.
You put me right, on the spot there, definitely. You think you can do these things, shouldn't you? So, yeah, but...
Hey, listen, I don't know what I've got next lesson, and that'll go out on the social media, so don't worry about that. That's fine. So just going on to, we have a lot of parents who are constantly looking for good information of, you know, how to help support their child. So what advice you as your father actually as well, what advice do you give to parents who has a child that loves the sport in many different aspirations, whether that's professionally or socially? What advice would you give to them in terms of developing their sport?
Yeah, the nail header for when they love their sport. As long as they're kind of loving their sport, enjoy it. That's the main thing. That's the foundation of it all. You know, there's a lot of studies and a lot of information about dropouts, kind of that kind of 18 and dropout environments, and they find that actually it's that the kind of pressure environments is kind of where they're almost kind of forced into it, that they're forced to kind of do that. When they do then have that choice at 18, I'm an adult, that they decide I'm not doing it. Where if there is that foundation of enjoyment and, you know, camaraderie, and this is great fun, I'm really enjoying it, then they're probably more likely to kind of follow that through. I've got little ones at the minute, so they're kind of 6 and 4, 2 girls. But and again, yeah, this week it's football. Next week it could be swimming. Next week it could be gymnastics. It's just whatever flavor of the month is, and we kind of go with the flow, you know. So what they want to do. And again, it is just enjoyment. In fact, it was a bit of cricket yesterday. Cricket started up yesterday game as well for them. So yeah, and look, as any kind of parent, you just want them to have that kind of well-rounded foundation, really, so that if they do have the aspiration and the talent and the opportunity to go to that next level, as we talked about those, you know, multidisciplinary backgrounds, that they then have the experience to go on and do that. You know, from an aspiration point of view, and, you know, wanting the best for your kid, back to maybe that young female, just try and find those opportunities and just kind of put them in those environments. If they make it, great. If they don't, then there's bound to be another opportunity along the line somewhere. I think if you put that pressure and that chasing that forcing element, I would say that's where it probably goes wrong. In my experience, really. Yeah.
So say you have a child who is in an academy or a high performance environment, they seem to have a lot of commitments and a lot of numerous things. How do you support, you know, how do parents support a child in terms of their numerous commitments and so on? What advice would you give from there?
Yeah, probably communication is the biggest one there. You know, from anything, it's depending on what age the child is. You know, obviously if they're a little bit older, we would try and communicate with the player, because again, that's part of the skills of that. We always CC the parent in, but actually we like to see the player take an initiative to try and organize their self and plan and be open and have those conversations with us when they're kind of at 16, 17, 18. If they're a little bit younger than that, sometimes the parent has to maybe show them the way and guide them the way a little bit more. We don't tend to work with players below that, but certainly from my school point of view, when we were kind of doing that, yeah, it was definitely the kind of parent, that organization thing. So that's definitely a big one, that communication. And again, just probably just chatting to the you know, your son or daughter as well, really, and actually finding, you know, if they have 2 or 3 commitments, which one do they feel more, you know, they want to kind of go through, because again, back to that enjoyment, and then communicating that obviously with the various stakeholders, you know, your coaches and stuff. So it might be that, yeah, they do want to do, you know, school hockey this week, but actually they want to go and play local rugby next week because there's a cup match on, or they've got something, you know, that's coming through on that side of things. So I'd definitely say that kind of communication, but trying to include the child in it as well, because from a coach and a talent ID point of view, that's a skill in itself, really. That kind of communication side, yeah.
Class, thank you. So last question from me. You're a young Steve McGinnis. You've just started again your journey of life, and you're coming into the sporting world. What advice would you give to that Steve in terms of going into sport, and what would you say to him if you were to go back now?
Probably look after your hair a little bit better, might be one as well. You know? So, not too many hair products when I was a bit younger. So, look, I've been very fortunate in my career, you know, and things have kind of gone through. Would I change anything? Probably not too much, in all honesty, because actually everything I've done's got to be where I am in the minute. So I don't believe in regrets. I just believe in the choices you kind of make moving forward from those things that happen. Again, probably just as I said about it, enjoy it and take those opportunities and just make the most of those opportunities. Like you say, so there's a lot of very, very talented people out there, and just being that a little bit grounded and realizing that it's hard, it's not easy, kind of going through that journey, and it will be ups and downs, but it's how you handle those downs that gives you the next kind of up in that peak. Going to work in that way. For me, through all my career, it was always about just trying to play the highest I could and enjoy that. As I said, I left university, hoping for some kind of professional career out of it, and didn't quite work out. So as I said, when I went and joined File from a semi-pro kind of point of view, it was great. The level of rugby we were playing was fantastic, and we were very fortunate to be coached by a very good team. Brian Ashton was there, Jason Robinson joined us for those couple of seasons and stuff as well. We had ex-pros kind of coming down and really aspiring young guys coming through, and it was the rugby was fantastic. It was really, really enjoyable, and I tried to make the most of that by my training outside of that as well. So we would train twice a week, and I would do my normal gym and stuff around that as well. So just trying to play to the level I was, that was the highest at the time. And then look, if an opportunity had to come along, I might have kind of said, yeah, I'll go and give that a go. But I think maybe just a lot of the kind of things along the conversation we talked about there is just enjoying it. You're a long time retired, someone says,
yeah.
and you can, if you chase it too much and you kind of have those kind of things, you just end up chasing your tail. While if you just enjoy the moment, make the most of it and yeah, just take the opportunities when they come along, really.
Class. Steve, I really appreciate your time. It's been a really good insight, and it'd be great for some of our parents and students and the CHS community to kind of see and listen to what you've kind of spoke. So I really, really appreciate everything you've given us today. And I wish you luck for the summer with identifying the next Irish international.
Thanks very much. If I can remember the dates, yeah, I'll try and get them. No, listen, I really, really appreciate your time as well, and having us on, and listen, look, good luck to all those aspiring athletes out there. We really hope to see you on a football or rugby pitch or wherever your sport is in the future. Yeah, it'd be good.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.